Jordan Bonifant, and he's crossing the 50-yard line. He has no one through the 20, 15, 10, 5, touchdown Heidelberg.
Good snap, good hold. The kick is up from Gaither, and it is good. Takes the give to Rudolph. Sizemore throwing off his back foot. What a catch by Bryson Ray! Oh my goodness!
Live from the studios at 33 College View, it's time for the Tim Doup Coaches Show on 97.5 WOBN. Now, here's your host, David Kinder.
Hello, sports fans, and welcome into the Week 5 edition of the Tim Doup Coaches Show here on 97.5 WOBN. I'm David Kinder. Joining me in the studios of 33 College View is the head football coach of your Heidelberg Cardinals, Tim Doup, and senior wide receiver Ryan Thombs from Gainesville, Florida. Ryan had 4 receptions, 55 yards, and his first ever college touchdown, a 17-yard reception from Brick Davis, and the 45-28 loss last Saturday to the Heidelberg Student Princes. Heidelberg falls to 2-2 on the season, 2-1 in OAC play after the loss in the Rhine River rivalry. Ryan, you're a guy that's been all over the field in your career. Last year, you're the backup quarterback. You've been used as a punter in your career, and this spring you make the switch from quarterback to wide receiver, and obviously you guys didn't get the victory, so it had to be a little bit of a letdown, but you have your first ever touchdown scored in college, and you lead the team in receiving after playing 2 other positions. It had to be nice to have a little bit of success at the receiver spot.
Yeah, I mean, it was great. It was really exciting, but yeah, it was definitely overshadowed by the loss.
Coach, it was obviously a game of 2 halves. Otterbein took a touchdown lead into the locker rooms, 28-21, and offensively at least had dominated up to that point. However, the second half, they get shut out, and the Student Princes score 3 touchdowns and a field goal to take the game 45-28 and take the Rhine River Cup back to Tiffin for the 4th straight year. What was the biggest change you noticed in between the halves?
Well, the biggest thing that we've talked about and that we've noticed is they took their play up a little bit and started making plays, and we didn't make the plays in the second half that we were in the first half. I talked to the team, and if you take 10 minutes out of the St. John Fisher game and 10 minutes out of this game, we just had a lull in those 2 games, and that cost us. But, I thought, and we talked also, it was a good conversation yesterday with some of the guys, and I said, what was the biggest difference? The biggest difference was, I think, we were playing not to lose. We had that lead, and we got into cruise control a little bit and tried not to be as aggressive. And in a big game like that, you need to stay aggressive.
Otterbein had a 2-touchdown lead right before halftime thanks to the reception from Ryan for a touchdown. However, Heidelberg comes right down the field, 3 plays and 50 yards, and they take only 30 seconds off the clock, and they make it a 1-touchdown game going into the halftime break. Did you feel that there was any point in the game that Otterbein seemed to lose the momentum that they had built up?
Not at that point. They scored, and if you look at it, we had 3 personal fouls. There's 40-some yards from the kickoff. So, we gave them a lot of yardage. But at that point, even going into halftime, I didn't think there was any momentum swing at all, to be honest. I thought we were still good, and everything was fine.
Coming out of the locker room, was there any play in the second half where you looked around and realized that it seemed like your guys had lost a bit of their momentum?
Well, I think, when they tied it up and make it 28-28, we were still fine. It's just, we came out and we tried to throw a screen. It gets batted straight up in the air, and their D lineman picks it off, right there. And the field position was unbelievable. I think they got it like on the 30-yard line going in. So, and then they scored to take the lead, and then on the next one we have the bad snap over the punter's head. At that point, you just get a feeling as a head coach that things are going a little array. We tried to regroup.
Michael Meese, senior quarterback for the Student Princes, threw for 318 yards, 6 touchdowns, fresh off his big victory over Ohio Northern where he threw 5 touchdowns, so he's got 11 in the past 2 weeks. The defensive backfield seemed to be completely lost on some plays. He threw 3 of those touchdowns for decent yardage, and there was no cornerback or safety with anywhere near the receiver. Why did the safeties and corners have so much trouble covering the wideouts?
The problem comes right back to his blown coverages. We didn't that long one was a blown coverage. The other one, and the other 2 were actually blown coverages on the tight end coming across down by the goal line. We just got to get that stuff fixed. I don't think it was anything we just blew coverages. And that can't happen against a good team like Heidelberg.
Coming into the game, the defense had 20 sacks through 3 games, more than double anyone else in the conference. However, they were able to get little pressure on Meese. 0 quarterback sacks. He was able to escape from a couple of them and take off. Was it that the Heidelberg line was that much better than Otterbeins, or did the D-line and the linebackers just have an off game?
Well, I think it's a little bit of both. Mike does a great job up at Heidelberg with that O-line. They've got 3 all-conference guys up there. I don't think we'd even seen an O-line like that. They're very, very good. They've played together for a lot of, several years, and they're just very good. But I thought, physically, they took it to us a little bit, and, our D-line we just couldn't get there.
Defensively, there were some positives. The defense held All-American running back Cartel Brooks to just 72 yards on 18 carries after he had over 305 touchdowns last year against Otterbein. Coach, how was the defense able to slow up the All-American back?
Well, we put an emphasis on stopping the run. They've got 2, him and Lacey back there, 2 great tailbacks, and the emphasis was, we have to stop the run and not give up big plays. And I thought we did a pretty good job of stopping the run, but the counterpart of that was we couldn't give up big plays, and I think we gave up like 15 plays over 10 yards, and that can't happen.
Ryan, the offense was very explosive in the first half. The first 3 touchdowns of the game coming from running back Drew Irvin. Then you caught one with a minute and a half before the break. 28 points in the first half, most with the exception of the Wilmington game that you've scored in a half so far this year. How was the offense able to exploit that Heidelberg secondary and the line to get so many points up on the board in the first half?
I think we just executed what we practiced all week. I think we were ready to go, and execution was the main part.
You guys, however, come out after the halftime break, get shut out in the second half, struggle to move the ball. 2 interceptions are thrown in the third and fourth quarter, just 58 yards of total offense, and that includes -7 yards of total offense in the fourth quarter alone. What adjustments did the Heidelberg defense make at halftime that seemed to slow you guys down?
They came out, I think, a little more physical in the second half. I think, but also like what Coach Doup said, I think we were playing not to lose, and you could definitely see that.
In the first 3 games of the season, senior quarterback Brick Davis completed at least 1 pass to 9 or more receivers in each game. However, Saturday against Heidelberg, just 5 receivers had 1 reception or more, you having 4 of them, second most on the team. Was there any reason that the ball wasn't spread around as much as it has been?
No, not necessarily. I just think it was the plays that were called.
Coach, I always like to ask you about a grade of the offensive line because I know how much importance you put on that position. And while the O-line allowed for 183 yards rushing, 18 more than that talented backfield of the Berg, they did allow 5 sacks on Davis, 4 of them coming in the second half. I asked you last week where Otterbein's biggest need for improvement was, and you said it was the offensive line. Did you feel like there was improvement, or did they take a bit of a step back?
Well, I think at times there was improvement, but obviously you can't give up 5 sacks. And with those 5 sacks, 2 of them were we just got beat, and I think 3 of them were we just didn't do what we were supposed to do. We didn't slide far enough in our pass protection, so that gave us some problems. But, we'll get that fixed, and it's got to be fixed by this week to be able to throw and pass evenly.
45-28, the final score from this Saturday's loss to the Heidelberg Student Princes. Otterbein falls to 2-2 on the season, 2-1 in Ohio Athletic Conference play. That takes us to our first break. When we come back, we'll look forward to the biggest of all Otterbein rivals, the Capital Crusaders, and we'll find out what the Cards need to do to get the victory. You're listening to the Tim Doup Coaches Show here on 97.5 with host David Kinder, receiver Ryan Thombs, and head football coach Tim Doup. We'll be right back.
Fewer than 5 out of 100 people give blood. Ever wonder why they do it?
It's the one thing that we can do that we can always afford to do, and hey, you get a snack afterwards. So
snacks are great. I had never knew my blood type, and I found out in doing this that I'm O negative, so there's that added pressure knowing that everyone can use my blood at any time, and so I feel like it's my responsibility.
It's a little extra bragging power too, knowing that you're a universal giver.
Yeah, I'm pretty special.
Call 1-800-RED-CROSS or visit redcrossblood.org to make an appointment today.
Hi, I'm Junior Center Grant Knoppenberger. You're listening to the Tim Doup Coaches Show here on 97.5 WOBN. Miss anything from today's episode, you can listen to every show on WOBN's YouTube page.
Hey Cardinal fans, Otterbein Athletics on the Radio is brought to you in part by Westerville Automotive. Serving the Westerville area for 20 years, they have 2 locations on Westerville Road and in the Uptown area, just seconds away from Otterbein on Main Street. They're on the web at westervilleautomotive.com. You can follow them on Facebook at Westerville Automotive Uptown or call them at 614-890-6700.
I used to be one of those irresponsible guys, always goofing off and acting like a real jerk. Girls wouldn't give me the time of day. Hey, Julie, do you have the time?
Shut up.
Then, 30 days before my 18th birthday, I went down to my local post office and registered with Selective Service overnight. I became aware of the man I had suddenly become, eligible for federal student loans, government jobs, and job training, responsible and mature. Hi, Julie. Dinner tonight?
I'd love to, Brad.
So register with Selective Service. It's what a man's gotta do.
These are the sounds of someone taking their eyes off the road. Texting while driving is more than distracting. It's dangerous. Do yourself a favor. Do us all a favor. When you're on the road, stay off the phone. A message from CTIA, America's Wireless Companies, and the National Safety Council.
Welcome back to the Tim Doup Coaches Show here on 97.5 WOBN. It is now officially the phenomenon known as Capital Week. This Saturday will mark the 88th all-time meeting between the two rivals, a rivalry that dates back to 1894. Capital comes into this game with the same record as Otterbein, coach, but they have taken very different paths to get to a 2-2 record. The Crusaders won their first two games of the year, but have lost back-to-back games to Muskingum and Mount Union, and last week they were killed by the Purple Raiders 75-0. Coach, obviously one of the biggest rivalries in all of D3 college football. You're undefeated as a head coach against Capital, 2-2 in your time here as a player in the 80s and 90s as against the Crusaders. What does this rivalry mean personally to you?
Well, I mean, having played here, you know, it goes back when I played my first game in 1986 as a freshman against them. You know, it is a big rival. It's a big game for us, and you know, I mean, they're so close to our school, and every sport's a rival, and you know, it is a big game, and I treat it as a big game.
Ryan, this will be your fourth ever Otterbein Capital game that you've been a part of. What does the rivalry mean to you? Obviously, you guys have won the past two, and you'd like to make it 3 in a row, and you can go out on a high note on your senior year and get the victory. What does it mean to you?
I mean, it's why you come here, you know, big crosstown rival. It's going to be chippy. It's going to be a passionate game, and it's going to be under the lights. And I'm 2-1 all time against Capital, so hopefully I can go out 3-1.
The rivalry has been incredibly close in recent years. Of the past 10 contests, Otterbein has won 6, Capital has won 4, and the difference in point totals between the two is just 12 points in those 10 games. Coach, this is a Capital offense that's going to do something we have not seen all year long, an option-style offense. Second-year head coach Greg Candino, a former quarterback at Navy, brought the option to Bexley. It's an offense we haven't seen in the first 4 games of the year. What kind of problems could that type of offense give Otterbein?
A lot. You know, it's a unique offense. You have to play assignment football. You know, they try to do things by cutting, and you know, your D-line, your linebackers, safeties, a lot of people get cut. You got to get used to that. And, you know, it's just a whole different offense that anybody is used to. So the biggest thing is you got to play assignment football.
Knowing that you're going to be playing a run-heavy offense, how do you change your practice leading up to this game?
You know, our defense will probably spend, you know, the majority of their time on the run game. But, you know, don't get fooled by the run game because they can throw. That's what they do. You know, they'll lull you to sleep, you know, with this, and then all of a sudden they're faking that and throwing. So, you know, we've got to be smart in the back end. Can't get nosy, but also, you know, we got to be able to stop the run and get down there. So we'll spend a lot of time on the run game.
What do you have to tell the cornerbacks in preparation not to get lulled to sleep by that run game and have to be ready for that. They could have a pop pass deep down the field.
Well, you got to be smart and get you got to keep your eyes out of that backfield, which is where they want you to do. They want you to keep looking in there, and then somebody gets behind you. So they have to play assignment football and not get lulled.
Ryan, in Capital's past 2 games against Muskingum and Mount Union, they've given up 111 combined points and over 1,200 yards of total offense. As a receiver, do you get more excited going into a week where you know the opponent has, quote-unquote, a little bit of a weaker defense?
I mean, I guess so, but I mean, it's a big-time rivalry, so I mean, they're going to come and play with passion, so I mean, you can't take it for granted.
We said you've played in 3 of these games before. What do you remember about Capital from the past few games, or watching any film that you've seen that they do defensively that could give the wide receivers some struggles?
I don't know if there's anything in particular. You know, they're going to run a lot of cover 4, and you know, I think we'll plan for it and we'll execute it. So.
What is the biggest need for improvement offensively going from week 4 to week 5 that you see that Otterbein needs to get done?
You know, we got blocked better up front. We just got to do everything better. We got to execute. Can't play lose. We just, you know, got to put our foot on the pedal and keep going.
Coach, what do you remember about this Capital? We talked about the offense that they do defensively from the past few games, or any film that you've watched that could give your offense a little bit of struggles.
Well, I mean, they're fast. You know, they're not the biggest up front. We're used to seeing big guys, you know, up front. They're a little bit smaller, but they're fast and physical. So sometimes that gives you more problems, believe it or not, than a big, strong guy. It's the quickness of their defense. And, you know, those safeties like to get downhill in the alleys. It's very tough to run, and that's what they want to do. So, you know, we've got to get ready for the speed of the game. I think that's the biggest thing.
For the majority of the year, or the whole football season, we've seen the starting lineup remain basically intact. Can we expect to see any changes in the starting lineup going into the Capital game?
I don't think so. You know, we just I think we're starting to play better. You know, you can see it every week. We just can't make mistakes. You know, that's our downfall right now, is we're making mistakes. And as a coach, you know, that falls back on us. It really does. It falls back on me, and we've got to get this fixed and make sure everybody knows what they're doing. And, you know, I think we'll just continue to get better and better offensively.
On the injury front, defensive lineman Evan Bergenstein out for this Saturday game with Heidelberg. Any update on his injury and if he'll be good to go for Capital?
Yeah, Bergie's coming back. You know, it'll be a slow week for him, but we're hoping to have him back, but we might not. So it all depends on how he progresses. I think it'll be a game-time decision. Any guys we can expect to see possibly take his place if he can't be out there? Well, the same guys that were out there. I mean, you know, Jonathan Vincent stepped in and played some D-end. And so, you know, they'll be the same guys that played against Heidelberg to keep them in that rotation. Saturday's game with Capital will be under the lights of Memorial Stadium. It will kick off at 7 o'clock, and if you can't make it to Memorial Stadium, but of course we hope everyone can make it out to that game, it's going to be a huge one, then you can listen to it right here on 97.5 WOBN. Myself and Elijah Gonzalez will have the call. Live coverage will start with the pregame show at 6:30. That's going to do it for our preview of the Capital Crusaders. We'll take break number 2. When we come back, though, we'll get Coach Doup and Ryan Thombs' opinions on some of the things going on in the NFL, and if they were in charge, what they would do to change it. You're listening to the Tim Doup Coaches Show here on 97.5. We'll be right back. Don't go anywhere.
Football is a sport that unites fans, players, and coaches alike in a spirit of competition and camaraderie. Football season has come to our area, and while you're watching a game with friends or sharing in the excitement with family, be sure to celebrate responsibly. Never pick up the keys and drive if you've had too much to drink. And if you're 21, drinking alcohol is against the law. Remember, alcohol is different. Let's all work together to keep our roads and community safe and have a winning season.
Be sure to log on to WOBN.net for a complete broadcast schedule of music, talk shows, and sports. That's WOBN.net.
When I grow up, I want to be a new pair of blue jeans.
When I grow up, I want to be a kid's first computer.
I want to be a warm fleece on a cold day.
Football
I want to be
stadium.
a bike that races around the country.
I want to be a bench on a forest trail.
When I grow up, I don't want to be a piece of garbage. And if you recycle me, I won't be.
Give your garbage another life. Recycle. Learn how at iwanttoberecycled.org. Brought to you by Keep America Beautiful and the Ad Council.
Would your business survive a disaster? Nearly 2/3 of businesses aren't prepared for an emergency, and 40% of businesses that experience a disaster never recover. Make an emergency plan now before it's too late. For a free online tool that helps you develop an emergency plan to keep your business up and running should disaster strike, visit ready.gov/business. Brought to you by the Federal Emergency Management Agency, the American Red Cross, and the Ad Council.
Can't make it to one of the football games this year? Well, WOBN has you covered with live broadcasts of all 10 football games this year, home and away. Join us 30 minutes before kickoff for pregame and stay with us long after the final whistle for analysis and updates on what else happened in college football. It's all right here on 97.5 WOBN and streaming live anywhere in the world on WOBN.net. Back here on the Coaches Show during Capital Week on 97.5 WOBN. David Kinder in the studio with Ryan Thombs and head football coach Tim Doup. And now it's time for the segment of the show where we get a coach and a player's opinion on something else besides Otterbein football. And you guys, there's been a lot of turmoil in professional football in the past few years, whether it's from changing the name of the Washington Redskins to domestic violence to head-related injuries onto the field. In addition to that, rule changes. We saw in the preseason, extra points moved back 10 yards, and we've seen targeting rules changed over the years. And our question to you guys, if you were the man in charge, if you were Roger Goodell, day one, what would be the first change to the league that you would make? What do you see as the biggest problem for the league, and what would you do about it and try to change it to improve pro football?
I think, in my opinion, it's the off-field annex of professional football players. They're getting paid a lot of money. When you have domestic violence and drugs and, stuff like that. I know my kids watch NFL all the time. And when you hear that stuff, kids look up to those players. They think they're, the greatest guys out there, and they're fun to watch. But then you hear the negatives, and you've got your kids that look up to these guys and hitting women and, abusing drugs. I just think, the harsher the better. And I would change that. I would make it as harsh as I possibly could.
So harsher penalties for the players to the extent that first-time offense out of the league?
I don't know. I'm thinking you hit a female. I mean, absolutely. The drug thing is a whole different animal, but I would probably be a little bit harsher there and suspend them a little bit more and make sure they're doing the right things to get better. But, my number one rule is don't ever hit a female.
As far as rules on the field, was there anything that you would change, maybe moving extra points back or eliminating some of the targeting rules or improving upon some of the targeting rules?
Well, I think, football is it is a violent sport. It really is. And the guys are getting bigger and faster and stronger. And, every year they're just becoming better athletes. And the impact of helmet to helmet and taking headshots and things like that, I think on that, I know everything's reviewable and everything else, but, the suspension of some players for going strictly for the head, could be put in place.
And then lastly for you, Coach, you are Commissioner Goodell, and you've heard a lot about the Washington Redskins team name. What do you do about it? Do you make them change it, or do you think it's okay to have it?
Oh, man, that one's tough. Just because they've been the Washington Redskins forever, but I see the other side. I just don't know. It's such political, and I see where everybody's coming from. But to me, the Washington Redskins are the Washington Redskins, and that's just tough.
It's a term that's changed a lot over the years, and I think a lot of people now view it not as anything Native American, but as a football team. And when you hear that word, you associate with a football team.
Yeah, I would never relate it. Obviously to the Indian culture, it's the Washington Redskins. That's just their mascot. That's what I relate it to.
And then, Ryan, for you, you're going from a senior in college. You're now the most important man in the NFL. What is the most important issue going on in pro football that you would deal with day one and try to change?
Yeah, I think I agree completely with Coach Doup. There's just this culture of violence in the NFL that needs to be changed. Not just domestic violence, but, assault, gun charges, that kind of stuff. And, yeah, these guys are role models. A lot of people look up to them, so that's definitely the first thing I'd change.
If kids in college at Otterbein can do it, I certainly think that multi-million-dollar athletes in the NFL can keep themselves clean. And then for things on the field, are there any rules on the field that you would change? Maybe the high hits on quarterbacks, or maybe the kickoff rules, or anything along that line?
Not necessarily. I mean, I guess I would definitely keep out of rules about targeting. As we've learned, concussions are a lot more serious than we once thought they were. So, yeah.
A lot of changes probably coming to pro football. That is what Ryan Thombs and Tim Doup would do their first day on the job. And who knows, maybe one day we'll get a chance to see you guys go out there and try to change the rules of the NFL. Well, that is going to do it for our Week 5 edition of the Tim Doup Coaches Show. If you missed any or all of today's show, then you can always listen to every episode live, or not live, recorded on WOBN's YouTube page. The game Saturday with the Capital Crusaders will kick off from Memorial Stadium at 7 o'clock, and if you can't make it, you can listen to it right here on 97.5 WOBN. Myself and Elijah Gonzalez have the call live coverage starting at 6:30 with the pregame show. For Ryan Thombs, head football coach Tim Doup, this is David Kinder signing off for WOBN Sports. Till next week, everybody.